Pickering, and welcome to Starbase Dallas. This is the second in a series of shows dealing with Star Trek and science fiction related fandom. Let me introduce to you my guests for today. First of all, we have Anthony Krakowski, who is the founder of Federation of Trekkers, United Federation of Trekkers. Next to him is his first officer, Robert. Also, we have Robert Rios, who is the founder and commanding officer of Lone Star. Next to him is Paul Hanley, who is the founder of the Science Club in Dallas. On my right, I have Bob Lockerman, who is the president of Solstice, which is a local Star Trek club. His first officer, Stevie Triver.
No, wrong again. I'm the Commodore and founder of Solstice.
Commodore. I thought you were going to tell me your name was wrong.
No, that's my name. I claim that. Yes.
Next to him, we have Robert.
No.
Stevie.
This is Steve Burns. He is the first officer.
Okay, so now you've done it. Okay. He's the first officer, Robert Reyes, and Tim Black at the end. Got that one right. He's the navigator, correct?
Nav helm.
Nav helm, navigator. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask you all a few questions about the image of Star Trek fandom right now. I know that a lot of people have an image of Star Trek in their mind as the fans running around with underwear on their head, shooting phasers, which is the analogy I like to use for that. Why do you think that Star Trek fans have that image, Anthony?
It just goes along with that old stereotypical Poindexter and science analogy, black horn glasses with 25 pencils in their pocket. So everyone thinks that anyone who likes science fiction is a personified person of that.
Is a nerd.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to say nerd.
I'll say it.
Yeah, that's just what it is, when really it's not. So we're all... Go ahead, Robert.
I think a lot of that has to do with the Saturday Night Live skit that's done a lot to perpetuate that image and poke fun of that image of the nerd as a science fiction fan. And as we were kind of hitting on in the last show, I think that Star Trek fans really do cross into every aspect. I think your bankers are your Star Trek fans, and your workers and your laborers and your teachers and your students, and being a Star Trek fan crosses into all aspects of society.
And Paul, you were talking to me earlier about why you thought that Star Trek fans had that image and that how it related to the television series itself. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I differ from my two friends here a little bit. It's not just the idea that the stereotypes have gone up because of the Saturday Night Live skit or anything like that. I think it's more, in my opinion, the general subculture, what I call a subculture phenomenon. If you take like bird watchers, for instance, if you're not really into it, it has a whole value system and things like that. Star Trek fandom is a real subculture, and if you're outside it, you're going to look at it as sort of in a skewed sense, that you don't really see what's really going on. You only see the superficial aspects, and you see all these people are walking around in these weird costumes. They do all these weird things, and so they must be weird. And no matter what subculture you're in, if you see someone else's subculture, you're gonna see it's weird. Like if we're looking at some other foreign culture, we see just a superficial. Say a Ted Koppel report on Brazil or something like that. We're saying, oh, these people are weird. And so I think you have something like that going on here. If they really got deeply to study it, they would see that people are just normal, and they just have a different series of values and hobbies and behavior than each other.
Okay, speaking of normal, I was getting to you, Steve. Now, I know that as far as Star Trek fans go, I know there are people who are really involved with Star Trek, and then there are like closet Trekkies who don't let themselves be known as far as Star Trek goes unless it's brought up in a conversation. I think, Stevie, that you and Bob and basically everyone on this side of the table are probably more than a closet Trekkie. You like people to know your affiliation. Why is that, do you think?
Why do we like people to know?
Yeah, why are you so
Because we
open
like it, and because the only way to find other people that are into it is to get on top of a mountain and go, hey, I'm into this. And then the people will know that, and then that's if you hide, you're not going to be found. This is all there is to it.
Well, also, we occasionally wear these costumes to conventions, but it's not like an everyday thing. We have real jobs. I don't have to think, what would Jim Kirk do before I make a move?
This is true.
And it's people have a real life. This is fun, but there is reality.
What does your family think?
They're Trek fans as well, but they're not quite as into it as I am. They watch the new series. They like the old series.
But my father introduced me to science fiction, and he was into Star Trek long before I was. In fact, when I was young, Star Trek was on for the first time. Lost in Space was my thing because I was like 8, you know. When my dad got me into Star Trek, my dad turned me on to science fiction when I was little bitty. When I think reached a certain age, he took me up to the attic and showed me this box of old analog and astounding science fiction magazines from the 30s and 40s that he'd collected. And back then, you were talking earlier about the image that fans have. Back then, when science fiction first became popular back in the golden age, it was considered a very, very low form of literature. You wouldn't find very mainstream writers or critics that would say science fiction is a valid form of entertainment. And it wasn't until the 60s with Star Trek and with 2001 that it really gained any kind of credibility. And so I don't think it's Star Trek fandom that has that. I think it's all science fiction fandom. And Star Trek being more popular and having crossed over more boundaries has become associated more with that. But I don't think it's unique. I really don't. So
are you offended when, like, skits like the Saturday Night Live skit that's been mentioned several times?
There's a lot of truth in that. I'm amused by it. I'm impressed that Shatner got up there and said that, because I've been to conventions and I've wanted to get a microphone and go, hey, get a life. You know, to a lot of people, and we all know people like this.
These people are running around, you know.
But they're everywhere. You can't say science fiction attracts all of them. If you go to a bowling alley, you'll find get-a-life bowlers. You'll find get-a-life golfers, you know. When I was in college and going to all the theater groups and the business groups, you had your get-a-lifers. You're always going to have people that are so insecure and with themselves that they will associate with something else, and that will be what they are. You will always have that. And with science fiction fandom, since you have to get on the mountain and yell it in order to find the people, you're just going to be more visible no matter what.
Now that brings up an interesting point that you were saying, that people who are insecure about what they are. Do you think that things like Star Trek and other cults like that attract those kind of people more than others?
I don't consider it a cult.
I don't think you can. I think the mistake you're making, Jackie, is that you're pointing out Star Trek and saying it's the only thing that does that. Anytime you have an interest, whether it be knitting or a television show, any Dynasty, you know, any television show is going to attract that. And that's where I get a little bit frustrated with people saying, well, Trekkers are this or Trekkers are that. You're talking about a group of people and a personality profile that really is everywhere. And it may or may not be more apparent in this particular group. Also understand that science fiction groups tend to be more open, and so that it can be shown more. It can be more noticed. But I don't think it's really more prevalent. I really don't.
Robert?
I think you also have to remember that, you know, we're not just Star Trek. I mean, I think I can speak for most people here. We all like things like Monty Python, Doctor Who, the Dr. Demento stuff, if you heard that. It's not just Star Trek that we're involved with. 2001: A Space Odyssey, Star Wars, even Lost in Space, although it's real campy. Batman, comic books. You know, it's the whole thing is everybody has things they like to do. Bowling, golfing, sports, comic books, Star Trek. It's just we like to get together, discuss it, talk about it, see if we can come to some agreement on some of the things that everybody likes about it. Like what does Star Trek mean to you? What does it mean to me? What is the philosophy of it? And you can't just put everybody in a little box and say, well, these guys are Trekkers, so they're kind of strange. We're everything. You know, we're just normal people. We like a little bit of everything. So I think you'll find a lot of people out there that are the same way. They may not say it. They may not come right out and say it. Hey, I'm a Trekker. I like Star Trek. But in the back of their mind, when they watch the series, they're going to enjoy some of that. They're going to say, I can identify with some of the characters in there, or I like what I'm seeing, or I think, yes, there is a future. I think Mr. Roddenberry has a point. There is a future to our culture, and we're going to live, and we're going to see the stars someday. I think everybody can identify with that.
I agree with that, Robert. Also, but there was something I wanted to ask Paul about the fandom genre, not just Star Trek, but is there a psychological attachment to that? I mean, is this something that everybody needs? Is this
Well, my opinion is that the Star Trek fandom and science fiction fandom in